You will see more than 150 amazing historical photos. Let's get 1,000 subscribers on this channel. I will be very grateful to you. People crowd into a makeshift bomb shelter in Chongqing, China in 1939. Japanese air raids repeatedly struck the wartime capital, forcing civilians underground to survive. Louis Cyr was a Canadian strongman who lifted 227 kilograms with one finger. He also carried nearly 2,000 kilograms on his back, a record unmatched for decades. The 1964 Alaska earthquake twisted these railroad tracks near Portage as the ground sank and split apart. At magnitude 9.2, it remains the strongest earthquake recorded in North America. A B-29 superfortress lies wrecked after ditching off Iwo Jima, with Mount Suribachi in the distance. Capturing the island gave damaged bombers an emergency refuge on their deadly missions over Japan. Eddie Carmel was born in Palestine in 1936 and developed gigantism as a teenager. He later became an actor, sideshow performer, poet, comedian, and leader of his own rock band. Ethel Kennedy blocks Harry Benson's camera moments after Robert Kennedy was shot in 1968. She was pregnant with their 11th child when she entered the kitchen pantry and found her husband dying. Josephine Baker fought racism by adopting 12 children from different ethnic groups, calling them her Rainbow Tribe. In 1959, she was photographed holding her 10th child, a Venezuelan boy. Marilyn Monroe was found dead in her Los Angeles home in 1962, with empty pill bottles beside her bed. Her death was ruled a probable suicide, but missing pills in her stomach fueled decades of suspicion. At age 12, Andre the Giant was already 6 feet 3 inches tall because his body produced too much growth hormone. He later became a wrestling legend, but the same condition contributed to his death at 46. In 1954, these parents learned that a wave had swept away their 19-month-old son. John Gaunt captured their shock, winning the 1955 Pulitzer Prize. 19-year-old Zeb Quinn vanished in 2000. 2 weeks later, his car appeared with its lights on, lipstick drawings on the window, a live puppy inside, and a mysterious woman seen driving it. In 1998, United States missiles destroyed Sudan's largest medicine factory, killing one worker. Washington suspected a link to nerve gas, but no conclusive proof was ever found. Bosnian soldiers prepared to assault a Croat enclave in central Bosnia in 1993. Minutes after this photo was taken, the soldier on the left lost his leg. Ondur Gongor was a Mongolian giant reliably measured at 7 feet 9 inches tall. The herder's son later served Bogd Khan as an accountant, bodyguard, and even keeper of the ruler's elephant. On April 30, 1975, South Vietnamese soldiers abandoned their uniforms near Saigon and escaped in civilian clothes. The discarded gear marked the final collapse of South Vietnam. This rare angle shows the house collapse stunt in Steamboat Bill Jr. from 1928. Buster Keaton survived because an open window fell around him, with only inches to spare. In 1982, a masked trick-or-treater forced Marvin and Ethel Brandland toward their hidden basement safe. When Marvin grabbed for the gun, the intruder shot him in the throat and escaped, leaving his pillowcase mask behind. Mike Tyson is seen shaking hands with Dale Hausner, a Phoenix serial killer who posed as a sports journalist. Days later, police arrived at Tyson's gym and revealed Hausner's horrifying crimes. In 1963, teenager Randy Gardner stayed awake for 264 hours, or 11 days. He hallucinated, slurred his words, struggled with simple math, then slept for 14 hours. A woman holds bulletproof glass inches from her face while her husband fires directly at it. This terrifying test shows how early safety demonstrations sometimes relied on pure nerve. Neil Armstrong parachuted to safety after ejecting from a lunar landing research vehicle on May 6, 1968. He escaped seconds before the aircraft crashed and exploded in flames. A wealthy Vietnamese man in Saigon displays extremely long fingernails in 1869. They signaled elite status because they made manual labor impossible. On April 28, 1988, the roof of Aloha Airlines Flight 243 tore off at 24,000 feet. The pilots landed safely, but flight attendant Clarabelle Lansing was swept from the plane and never found. Dr. Harold Shipman murdered at least 215 patients, but his trial covered only 15 deaths. This photo shows Shipman beside his Hyde Clinic, where he killed for years before a forged will exposed him. Women freed from Dachau laugh, cry, and wave after years of imprisonment. The photograph was taken on April 29, 1945, the day American troops liberated the camp. On October 22, 1999, stuntwoman Jan Davis jumped from El Capitan to protest Yosemite's ban on base jumping. Her borrowed parachute never opened, and she fell 3,200 feet to her death. This Oklahoma neighborhood was flattened by the Bridge Creek Moore tornado on May 4, 1999. It produced winds near 300 miles per hour, the highest ever measured on Earth at the time. In May 1946, Marines hurled grenades at armed inmates trapped inside Alcatraz. The three-day escape attempt ended with 5 dead and the prison cell house riddled by gunfire. In 1995, a small boy pressed his hands against the rear window of a refugee bus leaving Grozny. He was among civilians evacuated from the center of the brutal fighting. After the 1938 Anschluss, Nazi guards forced Jewish men to scrub a Vienna street while crowds watched. 19-year-old Rudolf Stern endured 2 hours of kicks and abuse, and this photograph now marks the site. In 1966, Cleveland players Larry Brown and Leon Wagner collided at full speed while chasing a popfly at Yankee Stadium. Wagner broke his nose, while Brown suffered a fractured skull and was rushed to intensive care. In 1918, British intelligence officer Thomas Edward Lawrence entered enemy territory disguised as a Syrian gypsy woman. Better known as Lawrence of Arabia, he used local clothing and fluent Arabic to move unnoticed. National Guardsmen watched Kent State's ROTC building burn on May 2, 1970. Protesters had set it ablaze and attacked firefighters with rocks just 2 days before Guardsmen killed 4 students. This Boer prisoner was photographed on January 21, 1902, minutes before his execution. Believed to be Cornelis Stein, he was captured wearing a New Zealand uniform. Joseph Taborski hugs his mother after 4 years on death row, when his murder conviction was overturned. 1 year later, he killed 5 people, confessed to the original murder, and was executed. In 1961, a mob firebombed this Freedom Riders bus near Anniston, Alabama. The riders escaped the flames, but attackers beat several of them outside. A Japanese prisoner sits behind barbed wire after his capture on Okinawa in 1945. In just 24 hours, the 6th Marine Division captured him and more than 300 others. Ota Benga was taken from Congo and displayed at the 1904 World's Fair. 2 years later, the Bronx Zoo put him inside its monkey house. This is Madame Monnier, who locked her daughter Blanche in an attic for 25 years. Police exposed the secret in 1901, and Madame Monnier died 15 days after her arrest. During Prohibition, rum runners drove alcohol from Canada across the frozen Detroit River. Thin ice could swallow an entire truck, destroying the cargo and trapping smugglers in freezing water. In 1975, Kowloon Walled City stood beyond effective British and Chinese control, allowing unlicensed factories, clinics, and businesses to thrive. Its maze of buildings later housed about 33,000 people in just 6.5 acres. In 1826, Jules Dumont d'Urville reported waves nearly 100 feet tall, but scientists mocked him. In 1995, the Dropner wave finally proved that such monsters were real. Soviet bombers struck Helsinki on November 30, 1939, killing 91 people on the first day of the Winter War. The attack destroyed hundreds of buildings and helped turn world opinion against the Soviet Union. On June 8, 1967, Israeli aircraft and torpedo boats attacked the American spy ship Liberty. The assault killed 34 Americans and wounded 171. In 1933, a mob smashed into a California jail and lynched 2 men accused of kidnapping and murdering Brooke Hart. Governor James Rolfe praised the killers, claiming they had warned future kidnappers. English communists clash with police during an unemployment march in London in autumn 1930. The violent scene reveals the anger caused by mass job losses during the Great Depression. Survivors gather around a fire after the 1988 earthquake destroyed much of Spitak, Armenia. The disaster struck in freezing winter weather, killed about 25,000 people, and left hundreds of thousands homeless. On November 12, 1996, a Saudi Boeing 747 and a Kazakh Ilyushin 76 collided over India, killing all 349 people. The Kazakh crew descended too low after misunderstanding the controller's English instructions. 14 former Neuengamme camp officials faced British justice in this courtroom in 1946. 11 were sentenced to death, while the other 3 received prison terms. Soviet radio-controlled mines devastated central Kyiv on September 24, 1941. The blast destroyed German command posts in the Children's World Store and main post office, killing more than 300 German soldiers. Patrice Lumumba is photographed under arrest in Congo in 1960, weeks before his execution. War photographer Horst Faas reportedly gained access by trading soldiers canned food and instant Polaroid pictures. On November 13, 1963, pilot J.M. Bauckham ejected from his jet and survived. His rescue helicopter later crashed near Oceana Naval Air Station, but incredibly, he survived again. At age 105, Joseph Cloves attended the final Grand Army of the Republic reunion in 1949. Born enslaved in Louisiana, he served the Union and died free in Michigan. On June 4, 1988, a train carrying explosives detonated near Arzamas railway station. The blast killed 91 people, injured 744, and left hundreds of families homeless. James Terry Roach pauses during an interview one day before his execution in 1986. Sentenced to death at 17 for 3 murders, he learned to read and write on death row. In 1939, Chinese Americans protested scrap metal shipments to Japan. Their signs warned that the iron could become bullets and that American families might be next. A United States Marine leads a captured Viet Cong fighter through tall grass in Vietnam in 1967. Behind them, an M48 Patton tank guards the area. In 1958, Americans tested this 30-kilogram armored suit against shotgun blasts. It protected the legs and had 2 lamps and firing ports, but its extreme weight kept it out of production. This Bosnian Catholic girl was photographed in 1896 with traditional tattoos called sikanje. The permanent crosses and patterns preserved Christian identity and were believed to protect against forced conversion under Ottoman rule. This 1908 photograph shows impoverished red-leg fishermen from Bath, Barbados, not white slaves. Their mixed African and European ancestry reveals a community shaped by centuries of colonial poverty. On March 19, 1938, Republican troops detonated a mine beneath Madrid's 5-story Casablanca, a nationalist stronghold. The blast demolished the building and reportedly killed about 300 fascist soldiers. A Chinese father and daughter calmly eat rice inside their ruined home after a Japanese air raid on Singapore. The photograph was taken on February 26, 1942. A Task Force 117 Zippo monitor blasts both flamethrowers along the Mekong Delta shoreline. On May 3, 1968, its crew burned away riverside cover that could hide an ambush. Leonarda Cianciulli murdered 3 women and turned their bodies into soap and cakes. She claimed the sacrifices would protect her son while he fought in the Second World War. A Sidewinder missile fell from an F-18 and skidded across the Midway's flight deck before vanishing into the sea. Between 1986 and 1988, the same squadron officially lost 3 missiles this way. French giant Baptiste Hugo reportedly stood 2.59 meters tall and weighed 201 kilograms. His brother Antoine reached 2.25 meters and weighed 150 kilograms. German bombers raided Moscow on July 26, 1941. Anti-aircraft guns fired as 7 parachute flares lit the city, helping enemy crews find their targets. American bombers strike a Korean railway station in 1951. Trains were crucial military targets because they carried troops, weapons, and supplies to the front. In 1981, a suicide bomber destroyed the Iraqi embassy in Beirut, killing 61 people. The attack was claimed by the Iraqi Dawa Party and also killed Iraq's ambassador. On June 17, 1967, China detonated its first hydrogen bomb just 32 months after its first atomic test. Soldiers raised Mao's quotation books as China became the world's 4th thermonuclear power. In 1968, Chicago police stormed this Black Panther office after officers were wounded by gunfire from above. A young member peers through a door ripped apart by bullets. Israeli soldiers inspect an Egyptian MiG-17 destroyed at El Arish Air Base in 1967. During the Six-Day War, Israel crippled Egypt's Air Force by striking hundreds of aircraft on the ground. In 1996, actor Terry Ike Clanton posed as a cowboy at Boot Hill Cemetery in Tombstone, Arizona. The photo appears to show a Wild West figure behind him, though Clanton claimed nobody was there. In 1978, J. Ross Bauman photographed Rhodesian soldiers leading a bound prisoner through a war zone. Critics questioned the series, while Bauman defended his work and later taught journalistic ethics. A 14-year-old Ethiopian guerrilla aims a rifle while wearing the hat of a slain Italian officer. He fought during Fascist Italy's brutal occupation of Ethiopia from 1936 to 1941. IRA prisoners Patrick Moran and Thomas Whelan shake hands inside Mountjoy Prison in March 1921. The next morning, British authorities hanged both men for alleged involvement in killing intelligence officers. American soldiers prepared to hang Klaus Schilling in Germany in 1946. He deliberately infected about 1,200 Dachau prisoners with malaria during deadly experiments. French nuns Alice Domon and Léonie Duquet were kidnapped by Argentina's military in 1977. Their captors forced them to pose with a Montoneros banner before murdering them in a death flight. Francesca Mambro stands behind bars during the trial over the Bologna station bombing. The former neo-fascist terrorist was convicted for the massacre that killed 85 people and received multiple life sentences. In 1948, explosives tore apart one of Berlin's massive anti-aircraft towers. Its concrete walls were so thick that demolition crews needed several attempts to destroy it. In 1900, officials burned a Honolulu building to stop the plague, but the fire escaped. It destroyed Chinatown and left about 4,000 people homeless. German troops in East Africa reportedly used this giant fake elephant foot to hide their trail during the First World War. The smallest soldier marched last, stamping over human footprints to make the unit look like a passing elephant. South Korean preacher Lee Jang-rim was arrested on September 24, 1992, after predicting the world would end that October. He secretly bought bonds that matured after his promised apocalypse. In 1900, Russian guards on the Chinese Eastern Railway posed with captured Manchurian bandits called Honghuzi. Their name meant Red Beards, and these armed gangs terrorized the railway across Manchuria. In 1933, nearly blind Marinus van der Lubbe awaited trial in Leipzig for burning the Reichstag. He confessed and was guillotined, while Hitler used the fire to suspend civil rights and arrest thousands of opponents. Newly liberated prisoners wait for food at Bergen-Belsen in April 1945. Life photographer George Roger captured the scene after entering the camp with the British 11th Armored Division. In 1970, this crash killed 75 people, including 37 Marshall University football players returning from a game. It remains the deadliest tragedy involving an American sports team. The Great Chicago Fire began on October 8, 1871, and burned for 2 days. It killed about 300 people, destroyed thousands of buildings, and left roughly 100,000 homeless. In August 1944, the Polish resistance seized much of Warsaw from German forces. They fought alone for 63 days while the Soviet army waited across the Vistula River. Deported in 1941, this husband and wife were torn apart for 5 years. In 1946, they finally found each other again in Haifa. This photo shows firefighters aboard the Grand Camp shortly before it exploded in Texas City in 1947. The ammonium nitrate blast killed at least 581 people, making it the deadliest industrial disaster in United States history. Around 1995, a Bosnian soldier returned to his village and learned that Serb forces had executed his family. Photographer Gilles Perez captured him crying beside a tree, still holding his rifle. General Hisao Tani was convicted for atrocities committed by his troops during the Nanking Massacre. On April 26, 1947, he was taken before a huge crowd in Nanking and shot. This house was ripped apart by a nuclear blast during a test in the Nevada desert. Scientists built entire fake neighborhoods there to measure how buildings, cars, and household objects survived the shock wave. Joseph Avery clung to a log above Niagara Falls for 18 hours after his boat crashed. A rescue boat finally reached him, but it overturned and he was swept over the falls. During World War I, civilians made emergency gas masks from cloth and goggles when proper respirators were unavailable. Some soaked the cloth in water or urine, hoping it would trap poisonous gas. At 23, Rosemary Kennedy was forced to undergo a lobotomy arranged by her father. The operation destroyed her ability to walk and speak normally, and she spent decades in an institution. In 1967, Australian Prime Minister Harold Holt vanished while swimming at Cheviot Beach. One of the largest searches in Australian history found no trace of him. NASA Flight Director Jay Green watches in shock as Challenger breaks apart on January 28, 1986. The disaster killed all 7 crew members just 73 seconds after liftoff. This photo shows Renee Chen's grandfather collapsing at her funeral. The 6-year-old actress was killed with Micah Din Lee and Vic Morrow by a helicopter during the filming of Twilight Zone, the movie. This is the last known photo of Janet Johnson during her 1973 Aconcagua expedition. She and John Cooper died mysteriously, and the film was recovered from her camera in 2020. When 10-year-old Florence Irene Ford died, her mother requested a window in the coffin and stairs leading underground. The unusual grave still stands in Natchez City Cemetery, Mississippi. From 1957 to 1971, Edward Paynell invaded isolated homes and attacked people he knew were alone. Wearing a twisted mask and a nail-studded costume, he terrorized Jersey as the Beast of Jersey. In 1932, a mob of 200 farmers lynched Pleasant Richard Ridd after he murdered an 8-year-old girl. This tree became the site of the last recorded lynching in Kansas. Cuban soldiers prepared to execute a suspected revolutionary in 1956 during the brutal rule of Fulgencio Batista. Within 3 years, the revolution would overthrow his government and transform Cuba forever. This late Qing dynasty photo is often described as showing a giant beside a nun. Their identities and the true reason for the dramatic height difference remain unknown. During the Algerian War, a French soldier escorts 2 Algerian detainees bound together by a rope. The image exposes the harsh military control used against Algeria's fight for independence. In 1994, 26-year-old Anna Nicole Smith married 89-year-old oil billionaire Howard Marshall. After his death, she fought for his fortune for years, but ultimately inherited nothing. German Heinkel. He-111 crews stage a symbolic funeral before a mission from Tatsinskaya Airfield in 1942. The burning coffin reads, "Your life, your reward," a grim reminder that many would never return. French sailors posed beside the wreck of German submarine UC-61 at Ouessant in August 1917. Its crew ran it aground and blew it up to prevent capture. Joe Raggio, one of the heaviest men in the world, eats beside a child in 1931. Their striking size difference made this photograph unforgettable. A former prisoner drags a camp guard by the hair as American troops watch at Dora Mittelbau in April 1945. The camp's brutal underground factories killed thousands through forced labor, starvation, and executions. This final photo of Andre the Giant was taken in Paris after his father's funeral. 3 days later, he died in his sleep from heart failure linked to acromegaly. On November 10, 1865, Henry Wirtz became the only Confederate officer executed for war crimes after the Civil War. He commanded Andersonville Prison, where nearly 13,000 Union soldiers died from disease, starvation, and filthy water. An injured bullfighter recovers in a hospital during the 1970s. Bullhorns could tear deep wounds and cause deadly internal bleeding. In 1901, Carrie Nation posed with the hatchet she used to smash saloons and liquor bottles. She called these attacks hatchetations and was arrested dozens of times. This young prisoner was photographed at Cambodia's S-21 prison in 1978. The Khmer Rouge targeted educated people and killed nearly 2 million Cambodians through executions, starvation, and forced labor. Saddam Hussein playfully points a pistol at his cousin Sajida Talfa, whom he married in 1963. The unsettling photo captures how violence and family life overlapped inside Iraq's future ruling dynasty. In 1974, the Symbionese Liberation Army kidnapped newspaper heiress Patty Hearst. Months later, cameras captured her carrying a rifle during a bank robbery, and the shocking footage turned the captive into a wanted fugitive. This may be the last photograph of Chang and Eng Bunker, taken in 1870 before their trip to Germany and Russia. They are pictured with Eng's son James Montgomery and Chang's son Albert. 19-year-old Tammy Middlebrooks pleads guilty as her public defender watches. She and 2 other white drifters tortured and murdered 14-year-old Carrick Majors after he accidentally broke a $2 vase in Nashville in 1989. On September 19, 1940, Dora von Nessen spent 4 hours in an Auschwitz pillory for loving a Polish prisoner of war. The Nazis displayed her publicly to frighten anyone who challenged their racial laws. A car bomb nearly killed Venezuelan President Romulo Betancourt in 1960, leaving his burned vehicle on the right. Dominican dictator Rafael Trujillo ordered the attack, helping seal his own fate 1 year later. On February 7, 1991, the IRA fired 3 homemade mortar shells from this van at 10 Downing Street. One exploded just 30 yards from Prime Minister John Major during a cabinet meeting, but nobody was killed. In 1916, men posed on a newly built gallows before 6 followers of Pancho Villa were executed. They were convicted after Villa's deadly raid on Columbus, New Mexico, which triggered John Pershing's expedition into Mexico. On February 9, 1986, my dad ditched his plane in the Pacific and photographed its tail above the water. A Chinese ship rescued him, and I was born 1 year later. On February 9, 1996, the Irish Republican Army ended its 18-month ceasefire by bombing London's Docklands. The blast killed 2 people, injured more than 100, and shattered the peace process. Let's get 1,000 subscribers on this channel. I will be very grateful to you.